Your experience is your superpower, not because of the years you've lived, but because of the battles you've faced, the tears you've hidden, and the lessons you've collected. Like rare treasures along the way, experience doesn't come wrapped in ribbons or highlighted on resumes. It shows itself in the calm, within chaos, the patience in adversity, and the quiet wisdom that whispers when others are shouting. A person with experience carries something far more valuable than raw knowledge. They carry understanding. Understanding forged not in books or lectures, but in late nights, in sleepless dilemmas, in heart-wrenching choices, and the courage to rise again after each fall. It doesn't matter where you started, what mistakes you made, or how long it took you to arrive where you are. Every scar is a badge, every failure is a brick, and every story is a pillar that makes you who you are. The strength of your soul lies in the fact that you have been through what others may not even imagine. And still you stand still, you fight still, you hope. When others question your worth, remind them that your journey was your curriculum, your struggle was your mentor, and your pain was your masterclass. What you've endured has shaped your instincts, sharpened your perspective, and armed you with resilience. You see the signs others miss, you feel the tension before it erupts, and you act not in haste but in intention. That is your superpower. It is subtle, often unseen by the naked eye, but deeply felt by those around you. Your experience gives you the ability to connect on a level no theory can teach, to lead without screaming, to teach without preaching, because you've been there. You've walked through the fire, not as a victim, but as a survivor, not as someone who burned, but someone who rose from the ashes with a deeper glow. And let's not forget the quiet confidence you now carry, the type that doesn't boast or need validation, the type that walks into a room and people sense something different. Not arrogance, but presence, not noise, but depth. The world chases speed, the new, the shiny. But it is those with experience who see the truth beyond the surface. They know that progress isn't always loud, that success doesn't always look like victory, and that healing sometimes looks like surrender. The truth is experience turns wounds into wisdom, regrets into resolve, and delays into direction. It teaches you that time is not wasted when you are learning that setbacks are setups and that every detour has something to teach you. We are taught to admire youth energy and new ideas, and yes, they have their place, but let's never forget that it is experience that steers the ship in stormy waters, that reads the map when everyone else is lost, and that provides the anchor when the tides get wild. When you doubt your worth, remember the moments you wanted to give up but didn't. The days you thought you had nothing left but still gave something. The times you were misunderstood, underestimated, or even betrayed, yet you chose grace over revenge. That is power, the kind of power that doesn't need applause to feel real, because it lives within you. Experience teaches empathy, not as a concept, but as a reflex. It helps you listen, not just to words, but to silence, and feel pain that isn't spoken. It helps you forgive when others can't understand why, and love even after being hurt. Because experience reminds you that we are all broken in different ways, and that life is more about healing than perfection. In your workplace, in your family, in your community, your experience is a compass that guides decisions, gives context to conversations, and helps others feel seen. When you speak, your voice carries the echo of trials overcome and hearts mended. That's why people trust you, even if they can't explain why. That's why people feel safer around you, even if they don't know your story. Because your experience radiates safety and strength. Your wisdom doesn't shout, it whispers in the middle of panic. It doesn't command, it gently corrects. It doesn't demand attention, it earns respect. Your experience may not come with certificates or diplomas, but it comes with clarity and character. It shows up when everything else fails, when plans collapse and chaos reigns, and in those moments you become the calm in the storm, the hand that holds, and the eye that sees what others overlook. Every time you share your story, you pass on a flame that might light someone else's way. Every time you listen with understanding, you validate someone's existence in a world that often ignores pain. Every time you show up despite your fears, you prove that courage isn't the absence of fear, but the decision to act in spite of it. You are not just your experiences, you are what you've done with them. You are the meaning you've created, the growth you've chosen, and the life you've built, not in perfection, but in perseverance. Your experiences have carved you into a human being who doesn't just survive life, but transforms it. Your superpower is not in being untouched by pain, but in being touched by it and still choosing love. Your strength is not in never falling, but in falling 1,000 times and still standing up 1,001. You don't need to be anyone else because no one else has lived your life, felt your feelings, or overcome your demons. No one else can offer the world what you can because your experience is your fingerprint, unique, uncopyable, and irreplaceable. There will be moments when you feel overlooked or irrelevant, when the world seems obsessed with speed, trends, and surface. But remember that depth cannot be faked and wisdom cannot be rushed. You are the oak tree in a forest of fast-growing weeds. You are the river that has carved valleys not by force but by consistency. You are the mountain that has withstood storms, not by resisting them but by embracing them. Your superpower isn't loud, but it is lasting. It doesn't just inspire for a moment, it transforms for a lifetime. It helps others find courage in their chaos, meaning in their mess, and hope in their hurt. The world needs your story, your insight, your steady hands, and your tender heart. Because there are people out there right now facing what you've already overcome. There are hearts breaking with the same pain you once carried, and your experience could be the balm that begins their healing. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to be present. You don't need to have all the answers. You just need to offer your truth. You don't need to know the future. You just need to share your past. You've walked through the rain. Now you can show others where to find shelter. You've tasted defeat. Now you can teach others how to rise with dignity. You've felt lost. Now you can help others navigate their way home. Your experience is your legacy, not just in what you've achieved, but in how you make others feel when they are around you, empowered, safe, understood, and never alone. The beauty of experience is that it grows not by holding on, but by giving away. The more you share, the more you heal. The more you open up, the more you connect. The more you reflect, the more you grow. Life has not been easy for you, but that's exactly why you're so strong. You didn't break, you bent. You didn't quit, you paused. You didn't run, you rose. And now here you are, not just living, but leading by example, by heart, by truth. So the next time you find yourself doubting your place, your path, or your purpose, remember this. Your experience is your superpower, and it is one the world desperately needs. There is a unique kind of energy that lives within those who have experienced the depth of life's spectrum, the highs that felt like flying, and the lows that nearly buried them. It's an energy not built in comfort, but in challenge. It comes from knowing what it feels like to be broken and still choosing to rebuild yourself, brick by brick, hope by hope, dream by dream. Your experience is not just a story of survival, it's a testimony of transformation. It is the living evidence that pain doesn't get the final word, that growth often sprouts from the most unlikely soil, and that even in darkness, a flicker of belief can be enough to start again. The things you've lived through have given you a lens through which you see the world, not with naivety, but with nuance. You don't just hear what people say, you feel what they mean. You can spot hidden grief behind polite smiles and detect weariness beneath cheerful tones. You don't judge quickly because you know that every person carries a story, and sometimes the loudest ones are crying the most silently. You offer grace because you've needed it. You offer time because you know how rare it is. You offer presence because sometimes that's all someone needs. You've learned that not all wounds are visible and not all strength looks like stoicism. True strength often looks like softness. True courage often means being vulnerable. True power often comes from quiet resilience. Experience has taught you to value the invisible victories, the mornings you got out of bed, when everything inside you screamed to stay down, the conversations you started, when fear tried to shut your voice, the dreams you pursued even when everyone else stopped believing. You've realized that growth isn't always about going forward. Sometimes it's about pausing, reflecting, healing, and then rising with new insight. The person you are today is a mosaic of every moment that shaped you. The heartbreaks taught you about boundaries. The failures taught you humility. The rejections taught you redirection. The lonely nights taught you self-worth, and the comebacks taught you that you are far more powerful than you ever believed. Your experience is not defined by the pain you've endured, but by the strength you chose to summon. Through it, you could have given up 100 times, but you didn't, and that choice It changed you, made you wiser, made you deeper, made you into someone others look up to, even if you don't realize it. When you walk into a room, you bring more than your presence. You bring your past, your pain, your perseverance. You bring the lessons your life taught you, the silent strength that kept you moving, the faith that refused to die. You are not here by accident. You are here because you have something to offer that no one else can. You carry a light forged in fire, and when you shine, others find their way. You may not always see the impact you make, but someone out there is stronger because of your story, braver because of your honesty, more hopeful because you didn't hide your scars. The beauty of your journey is not that it was perfect, but that it was real, raw, and resilient. You've learned that being broken doesn't make you weak. It makes you authentic. That asking for help doesn't make you less. It makes you human. That admitting pain doesn't mean you're failing. It means you're healing, and healing doesn't always look pretty. Sometimes it's messy, sometimes it's slow, but every step matters. Your experience is a toolbox filled with tools you didn't even know you were collecting. The wisdom to pause when anger rises, the courage to speak truth with kindness, the discernment to walk away from what doesn't nourish you, the humility to admit when you're wrong, the compassion to forgive without forgetting. Every lesson, every loss, every win, every tear, they all added something to your soul's fabric. You are the result of 1,000 tiny decisions to keep going. And now you carry a gravity not everyone understands, but many are drawn to. That's why people come to you when life gets hard. That's why your words linger even after the conversation ends. That's why your silence speaks volume. Because your experience has made you magnetic, not in a flashy way, but in a deeply grounded way. You don't pretend to know everything. You don't need to. But what you do know, you've lived, and that makes it powerful. Because nothing resonates more than truth lived and shared. And you don't share to impress. You share to uplift, to guide, to say, I've been there too, and you'll make it through. You've seen seasons change. You've seen people come and go. You've felt hope slip through your fingers and then somehow return in unexpected forms. You've learned to love again after betrayal, to believe again after disappointment, to try again after failure. You've made peace with things you cannot change and changed things you never thought you could. That's the power of experience. It doesn't just teach it. It transforms, and that transformation is contagious. It inspires people not just to admire you, but to become more of themselves. Your journey becomes a mirror that reflects possibility. Your resilience becomes a blueprint for their rise, and your scars become a signal that healing is possible. You no longer need validation to know your worth. You no longer seek approval to feel enough. You become your own anchor, your own hero, your own guidepost. You respect your past, not because it was easy, but because it taught you everything you needed to know to stand tall today. And now when you look at others, you see not just who they are, but who they're becoming. You know that the messy middle is still sacred, that the unsure steps are still progress, that the unseen effort still counts. Your experience gives you patience, not because life was slow, but because you learned to trust the process. You understand that timing is divine, that delays can be blessings, and that sometimes the greatest shifts happen when nothing seems to be moving on the outside, but everything is changing within. You are proof that experience builds depth, depth builds character, and character builds legacy. And that legacy isn't about fame or fortune, but about how many hearts you've helped heal, how many lives you've lifted, how many people you've reminded that they are not alone. You may not wear a cape, but you are a warrior. You may not hold a title, but you hold truth. You may not lead armies, but you lead with light. So never doubt your power, never underestimate your worth, and never forget that your experience is your greatest contribution to this world. Because in a world full of noise, your truth is needed. In a world full of fear, your courage is needed. In a world full of distraction, your presence is needed. You are a lighthouse, a storyteller, a lifeline. You've walked the hard road. Now others can follow your footsteps, not to avoid the pain, but to learn how to rise from it stronger, better, wiser. So walk with pride, not arrogance, with humility. Not shame, with clarity, not fear. Because your experience is your superpower, and the world is better because you chose to use it.